So I actually had a different way that I entered the technology industry in the sense that I decided I wanted to be a manager when I was 16. And that was the way that I found myself deciding that I would go into the software industry. So I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. My father worked in the government consulting business. And so as soon as I was old enough to work, I started picking up contracts. And I did things like worked at the National Archives where I did data entry. I worked for the Metropolitan Police Department where I installed mobile data computers into police officers' cars. I worked at the FTC where I got to work on web forms for antenna applications and things like that. But over one break, I got stuck doing paperwork for the company. And I noticed some of the contracts, they ended early. The company made a lot of money and they were wildly successful. And then some were delivered really late and they lost a ton of money. And then I noticed a manager quit or leave the company, and the company threw a huge party because they were so happy that he was gone. And then I saw another manager quit, and one by one, I watched his team quit. And I realized that there was a correlation between that manager that inspired that type of loyalty and the contracts that were successful. And I became fascinated by the idea of how do you create a culture? Like, what is it? What do people look for? And what do you need to have to feel rewarded at work? Because if you think about the number of hours we spend awake, we spend more time at work than we do with our own families. And so I decided I wanted to be a manager and I wanted to learn how to grow and motivate and create a culture and team in which we could work together on a common goal, constantly, continually grow and learn and feel rewarded, as well as doing great things for our customers. So I decided I wanted to be a manager. What was I going to manage? I thought, well, I'm kind of decent at the software stuff. How about I manage software engineers? So if I wanted to manage software engineers, I had to be one first. And that's what motivated me to go to college to get my degree in computer science and then enter the work industry as a software engineer, always trying to figure out how I could make my path into management. So my number one job is to grow and develop people. And so at my level, a lot of my time is spent in strategic meetings, but also having one-on-ones with the leaders of my team, both managers as well as technical leaders, to work with them to solve problems, to share strategic and business context so they have the right information so that they can be able to problem solve, to really make sure that they have the information they need to empower them to be able to solve our customers' problems in a way that is both like valuable for our customer, usable from a design and usability perspective, viable for the business, and feasible from a technology perspective. I also, make sure or play heavily into ensuring we are continually growing our engineers and their leaders. So I spend time working, communicating with business stakeholders as well and partners, and then bringing that information back to the engineers and leaders in my organization. And I do things to improve our technical excellence in our organization. So I work to improve our processes and make sure that our leaders are growing their talent on their teams. So like a project that I recently took on was rewriting our software engineering leveling guidelines, right? So that we could actually have some more clarity about what it means to be a software engineer at the first level, the second level, the third level, so that our managers can then use that to create gap analysis and help grow and develop their software engineers on their teams. So some of the things we do at Vista include things like getting together with our talent acquisition team when we kick off a new role to talk about diversity needs for our teams. Having those type of conversations early on in the process really helps us create our diversity strategy. We run our job descriptions through a platform called Textio. Textio allows us to analyze the language that we use and the tone to make sure that we are writing job descriptions that are inclusive. So we do that. And also that platform provides feedback and recommendations. When it comes time to interview, we try to ensure that the interview panel has diverse representation. We create scorecards where we're very clear about what are the outcomes that each of the interviewees are testing for and what questions should they ask. And we do this to be able to help make sure we don't actually overlap in our questions in our interview process, but it also helps reduce the chance of unconscious bias, especially when we have to bring in alternates, because then we're making sure we're delivering the same consistent interview experience. We provide resources to our hiring team to upskill them on how to identify and eliminate conscious and unconscious bias. So we do some training and workshops around that. We create a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan to help clearly lay out what's expected for the candidate when they start. And so, we connect that with what we do in the interview process to make sure that there's consistency there. That our talent acquisition team, they run monthly sourcing parties where we do targeted searches for diverse talents for one highlighted role a month. And then within my leadership teams, like we will do what we call sourcing parties where we're also kind of connecting with each other on LinkedIn and actively working together, bringing some of that recruiting and sourcing within the own team. Our talent acquisition group also has a diversity sourcing spreadsheet, which provides market data on things like gender diversity for roles in technology, as well as things like lists of meetups, conferences, or traditionally diverse colleges or other interesting mediums where we can go to source for gender diverse talent. So that's helpful too in kind of training and providing resources for our talent team. We also look for ways to partner outside of Vista. So we collaborate with tech communities through virtual and on-site events, technical labs, and so on. This helps us create a network with women in local communities. For example, we recently attended and in the past have hosted Women Hack, which has helped us connect with women in the tech community in Spain. And then obviously we have our new partnership with She Can Code, which is really exciting for us. And so those are just kind of a few things we do in that space. So Vista has invested in building a dedicated diversity, equity, and inclusion team that's focused on the execution of our inclusive workplace activators alongside our HR business partners. We're remote first here at Vista, and so all remote first new employees go through DEI onboarding. We have 5 employee resource groups, which are support systems that foster awareness, respect, and inclusion within the workplace by engaging groups that share identities or interests. So the 5 groups that we have are around our Mental Health Alliance, we have Military, Veteran, and Families, Mosaic, which is surrounded around racial ethnic diversity, Pride, LGBTQIA+ community, and Women at Work. And all of these are open to everyone in the company, no matter how they identify. We also track representation. So we use data. We track representation, hiring rates, attrition rates, promotion rates, all these types of things where we can inform us on our diversity strategy, where we can do things to measure how we are doing when it comes to retention. We conduct frequent surveys within our team to ask for people for their perception on the company's efforts to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we do this in a confidential way. Hoping to be able to get people to share how they really think we are doing. We share data transparently with our team members and our leaders, and some stats are also shared externally. We then have these learning pathways that we develop with DEI capabilities in mind. So we have 360 online learning that we support, and we have different training opportunities and all these things. While we're putting these programs together, we keep in mind any information that we think to be able to make sure that we are managing bias, that we are actively including, and that we are championing belonging. We offer great benefits. We have a global framework for health, self, and wealth with localized offerings. We have mental health resources and counseling coverage. We do offer some locally competitive time off programs. And like I said, we're remote first. So with that culture, we have the ability to offer kind of remote hybrid schedules for eligible roles, and be able to do things with that, especially given the fact that we have manufacturing plants and our customer support care organization. In addition, we have this concept that we call People Days. This is where we get together twice a year to review our talent. And something that I think is really exciting to see in a technology organization is that we spend a lot of time going through and talking about our employees and come up with growth opportunities, right? Identify places where people are struggling and what can we actively do to help them. But then also where, do we have opportunities for our top talent or people that need to grow, and to be able to help expand that. And we do it in a very collaborative way so that maybe there isn't the opportunity within your group, but if there's an opportunity in another team. And so we connect our leaders together to be able to actively talk about our talent and to look for these types of opportunities to grow and develop people. And then we offer mentorship opportunities as part of that process, and outside of that, to connect people within the org with either executive leaders or more senior talent to be able to make sure that they are getting what they need or getting some support around that. Diversity is so important, and we're suffering from a lack of diversity in the software industry, and we desperately need diversity. Software touches the lives of so many people, and it's so important that we have diverse representation to ensure that we are building products that appeal to more people and meet our customers' needs. And when you think about this industry, it's a challenging industry for a woman to be in. Women account for 47%, almost 48% of the global workforce, yet only 27.5% of developers in the world are women. And in the US, only 24% of the tech jobs are actually held by women. Right? And if you think about that, and then you also couple the fact that about 38% of women in tech plan to leave their employers within the next 2 years, and if that's not bad enough, 50% of women who take tech roles, they actually drop it by the age of 35. So the advice I wish someone had shared with me is the fact that it has to be around like your career and your growth and development, and that's the biggest advocate for your career will always be you. And so make sure that you are in control of that. Managers will come and go. In the 22 years that I've been doing this, I've had 25 managers, and only 3 of those were women. So make sure you are having active conversations about growth opportunities with your manager, and don't wait for your manager to start them. And if I can throw in one more piece of advice, I would say seek allies. We need to work together and be together for each other to be able to make sure that we can start seeing the equal representation that we need to have in our industry.